Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Mindset Monday. How's everybody doing out there? Getting closer to the holidays. Doing a wellness check. See how we're all handling this time of the year. Festive, stressful, good. Good to see everybody. Hi, Holly. Happy Monday to you. Happy to see you. Okay, guys. Oh, it was an early wake up this morning. I'm trying to pry my eyes open. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're talking about leadership optics. And this is a topic I find super interesting and one that we usually don't talk about very much, but it's something that I think we need to talk about more because it is ever present and it is something that is ongoing, whether we're talking about it or not. And good morning, Samuel. Good to see you. And so leadership optics or optics in general. So if we think of the word optics, right, we live in a world of optics. We usually don't hear people talking about it very often, but if we watch the news, we're being told stories through a certain lens, right? If we are scrolling through social media, we are looking at pictures through the lens of artists that are telling a story through their art, through pictures, through photographs. And people are usually telling a story based on how they or us want people to perceive them or how we want people to perceive us, right? So we may post a picture, we may tell a story based on how we want people to see us, right? So that's an optic. That is telling a story through a certain lens. And the same thing happens in the news, right? We are based on what news channel you're watching, there's a story being told through a certain lens. So that's called optics, right? When we think of the proper definition of optics, if you're looking like in the dictionary, it's the scientific study of sight and the behavior of light. But in the dictionary, there's also a slang term for optics, which is the way a situation, action, or event is perceived by the public or a particular group of people. And that is the slang term that I want to talk about today. The way a situation, action, or event is perceived by the public or a particular group of people. So when we talk about leadership in optics, I I'm going to take you back this past week. I was working with a client of mine, and I won't mention any names. I have amazing clients that I get to coach. I have the honor of coaching that they trust me with their, not only themselves, their businesses, but their leadership team. I do a lot of coaching with not only owners, but their managers. And I was working with a longtime client of mine, and they have a new manager coming on, and we were working together this past week, and the leader of the company, who has just done so much growth over these years, wanted me to talk to her manager about the lens that she wants her to look at with the team. And I just loved that she brought this up, and this is really what inspired my Mindset Monday today. Was we had a whole hour of talking about leadership optics, and I thought, God, we don't talk about this enough. And this is something I think I take for granted because I've been doing it for so long, but I don't know that a lot of people think like this. And I think it's a really important thing to think about as we lead our teams. And we went on to talk about in that hour that how our team perceives us is everything. How we show up, what we say, what we do, how we launch new programs, why we launch them is how they perceive us. And at at every moment, in any given moment, we are being looked at and judged. And when I say judged, it's not always in a bad way, but if we think about how we walk around the world, we're always looking and judging and making opinions and ideas about things. It's just normal human behavior. And our team is no different. And in fact, when I was really new, as a new owner in my business, I remember driving to work and I'd be driving to work and I'd have my sunglasses on and I'd get out of the car and I'd have my bags in, I'd be packed up with my purse and my work bag or my briefcase and like I said, my sunglasses, and I'd go walking into my business. I'd open the door and if I wasn't opening, if I was coming in a little after opening, I'd have my glasses on. I'd walk right from the door to my office. And I just wanted to get to my office because I wanted to put my bags down and kind of get myself grounded. And so, what I didn't realize is that by not having my glasses off and by me rushing from the front door to my office, I was being looked at as somebody that wasn't available, that wasn't connecting with the team, that was a little bit shut down, and I was not present. And it took me a really long time to realize that I was being looked at like that I wasn't being looked at as somebody that was available to my team, and that I was setting the tone just merely because of the way I was walking in the door. So I wasn't presenting a great optic based on the way I was walking into work. It was something that little. And so it was just an aha moment for me that before I got out of the car, I had to get my wits about me, get my own presence of mind, take off my sunglasses, put them in my bag, um, make sure that I got my mind right. So when I walked in the door, I could look at everybody. I walked in slower. I connected with people on the way to my office. And sometimes it took me 10 minutes. To this day, sometimes it takes me 45 minutes to get to my office because now I walk in with one bag. It has everything in it, my computer, everything that I need. And I'll put my bag down at the front desk before I even make it to the office. But this is just the habit that I've gotten into because I want people to view me as available. And this is something I've learned along the way. And I feel like as leaders, we have to always be doing a check on ourselves and say, when we know better, we have to do better, right? So when we let's get back to this topic, which is leadership optics. And I want to kind of take a step back to last week when we talked about this topic called culture shifting. So if you weren't at our live last week and you didn't listen to our live last week, I would go back and take that 25 minutes and listen to the topic culture shifting, because I think it really, if we put these two things together, if we're going to be doing any shifting of our culture in the new year and making any changes, we can pair it with this topic called leadership optics, because if we're going to make any changes, we want to make changes and first take a look at, with the changes that we're going to make, how are we going to be perceived to the clients? How are we going to be perceived to our staff? And is it going to be a win-win situation, right? And so let's just take a look at that and make sure that when we make the changes that we are speaking into what I call the listening of our team. So I'm going to say that again. When we're making changes, we want to make sure we're speaking into the listening of our team. If we're an educator and we're not an owner, and you're teaching a group of people because you're in your education, you're in your class, you want to speak into the listening of the students. And you want to bring them along for a ride. You want to make sure that they're discovering what's in it for them so that they are excited about the changes and the learning along the way. If you're an owner and you're making changes in your company, it's the same mindset. You want your team to be excited about the changes because they see what's in it for them. They see hope for themselves in the future, so they want to get on board. How many times have we tried to make changes in our company when we were met with deaf ears or we were met with resistance or resentment? So let that drop for a minute. And why is that? Maybe it's not because it was a bad idea. Maybe it's not because it's not what the company needed. Maybe it's because of the way we presented it. Because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with my clients, with owners, that things needed to change in the company because they needed to change, because things always need to evolve and grow. And they were good things that needed to change, but they weren't mindful of the best way for the things to change so that the team could have an open mind to see what was in it for them to then get on board for an easy transition. And sometimes I think as leaders, we have a long time to process why things need to change, and we can see what I call behind the curtain, why things need to change. So we process this, we see why they need to change, we seek out solutions of why things need to go a certain way. We go through our own process. Then it appears to the team that we make these split decisions. We just let them know that these things are changing with no processing time, no reason. And then they are trying to grapple with what's even in it for me. And we're met with resentment or resistance. And then we as owners don't understand why we're met with that. So then we're perceived as these leaders that were only in it for us, were only in it to get rich quick. Like, the stories then get made up about the leaders. All these stories get made up, right? That are not accurate. But if we don't take the time to create the story and create the optic and roll something out in a way where our team can see what's in it for them and get excited and hopeful for a great future for themselves, then we're going to be creating a rocky road for ourselves. And is that's tough. So that's why I thought today would be a good topic, kind of coming off the heels of culture shifting, um, because we can't just make decisions and throw it out there. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things maybe that could change, things that I've been hearing lately, um, of changes that I think are going to take consideration to roll things out in order for them to be successful. So there are a couple things that I've been hearing that owners are considering lately. Taking on another product line. That's a consideration. That's something that you just don't bring on and expect your team to get behind without consideration and a proper rollout of why that would be great for them. Um, I'll tell you one thing that was super big for our company years ago, which was changing how we pay our team. in California, the laws changed. This isn't something we wanted to change, it's something we had to change. And even though we had to change it by law, we still had to be so thoughtful in how we rolled it out that our team had to be hopeful that it was going to be the best change for them moving forward. So, my gosh, you can imagine how many months that took to create a program where they could see that for them it would be the best case scenario when they were getting paid for years a certain way. Um, Changing leadership. If you're doing chess moves in a company and changing leadership, we have to we might be processing this for a long time, or processing it for a bit of a time, and we know why it needs to happen, but the team has to be able to process this, and why would we be making these moves, and what's the best way to roll these things out. So these are some of the pieces um, that we need to make sure that we process as a company, and we then have to be able to, when I say rollout, I mean a proper rollout, that we go through a process. And the process that we go through, or I go through in my mind, before I roll something out, there's three questions that I ask myself before I make a change in my company. And the first thing I ask myself is it going to be beneficial to my team? It has to be a yes. The second thing I ask myself is it going to be beneficial to the clients? That has to be a yes. And the third thing is it going to be beneficial to the company? And it has to be a yes. So if those three things are a thumbs up, then I know that we can move forward. Then what I do is I make a list under those three things. What are the benefits to the staff by moving forward? What are the benefits to the clients by moving forward with this said change? And then what are the benefits to the company for this said change? And I have to know what those benefits are, because in our rollout, or in our change, or in being able to describe this to the company, describe this to the team, I'm going to have to be able to come up with a way where the team are going to be able to see this thing called WIFM. What's in it for me? Everybody wants to know what's in it for them when you are launching something new, when you're making changes about anything in the company, right? So I have to make a list of benefits of what is going to be in it for the team, what's going to be in it for the company, and what's going to be in it for the guests. So how is it going to be a triple win? Because I think when the team can see what's going to be in it for them and in it for the clients, and how the company is also going to win, then it's going to be much easier to digest, and for people to actually get on board, and to everybody be a cheerleader around this. And I think if we look back and at any programs or anything that we've changed that has been a fail, or that's been met with resistance, and we look back at how we've done it, we maybe haven't looked at, has it been a triple win? Have I rolled out what the benefits are for these three specific lanes? Maybe I just went through it in my brain and I didn't roll it out like that to the team, and it hasn't it I didn't get people on board, right? I didn't take them along for the ride. So if I haven't done that, you maybe just maybe it hasn't been met with these three benefits, and it hasn't been met with a thumbs up by the team, right? So I'm going to ask that you throw me some comments. What are some changes that you feel you want to make in your company that um, that you have been thinking about, that you want to roll out to your team, that maybe you're a little bit nervous about, right? That you are going to need to um, really think about and process and get them on board. And here's the checklist that I want you to think about before you roll it out to your team. Okay. So number one, when we make when we're going to make a change and we're going to want to roll something new out, I already gave you step one. We make a list of benefits to all three things. How's it going to benefit the staff, the clients, and the company? Okay. And then we make a list of the ways, the changes. All right. And then what we're going to do, that would be, and then that would be number one is we make a list of what are the benefits and what are the ways, what are the changes going to look like? That's number two. What are the changes going to look like once we actually take that leap? That's number two. Number three is I like to talk about what could the possible downfalls be also. Once we make these changes, what are the fears that people have by making these changes if they're big changes? Like, what could the downfalls be? What could the pitfalls be? What are the fears that people have? Because I know that when we make changes in the company, there are fears that people have rolling around in their head. And unless I bring it up, they're not going to actually come out with it because in a group of people, they're just going to be sitting there like, they're going to wait until there are multiple people in the back room to start talking about the fears. So I just like to say, let's come out with it. What are some of the fears or what are some of the downfalls that you think could happen by making these specific changes? So, maybe like, look, when we had to make the payroll changes and we brought this out, what are some of the fears that you guys think could happen? People would raise their hand and say, I'm afraid I'm going to make less money, right? That's a legit fear. And I know at that time when we made those changes, one of our guarantees was that our team, when we made that change, was not going to make less money than what they were currently making. So we were able to eliminate that fear. And so I think it's a really good idea when you are getting ready to launch any culture shifting or any big changes in your company for you to be prepared ahead of time to be able to say, all right, what would be some of the fears that my team would have that I can look at ahead of time and be able to get my head around what are some of the things they might be a little bit apprehensive about so that I can even speak to some of those things. So let them come up with those things and let's troubleshoot together because some of those fears might be legitimate and they may or may not happen. But at least let's talk about them out here in the room instead of being, a topic of conversation in the back room. Our fourth step is going to be the launch, right? So then you're going to launch. And then number five is always going to be follow up. So even though you're going to launch this change that you're going to have, this culture shift that you're going to have, these little, changes that you're going to make, or a big change, number five is going to be follow up. After you make whatever change or shifting that you're going to make in your business, follow up is critical to then be able to follow up with your team at your next huddle or your next meeting and be able to speak to the changes that have then happened. What great things have come out of the changes that you made? And what are some tweaks that you need to make to then support the continual growth of that change that you made? Because not every launch is going to be perfect. Not every launch is going to go just without a hitch. You're going to have some hiccups or speed bumps along the way that then you are going to, I'm going to want you to talk about. It's okay that it didn't go perfectly like you painted this perfect picture in your mind. It's okay. It's okay that it went 75% and it's 25% you need to talk about. Like, hey, we didn't even expect this certain thing to happen, but this certain thing happened. So you guys, how are we going to then get this 25% off the ground? And maybe you troubleshoot that, brainstorm it, storyboard it, figure out how to get that other 25% up and off the ground. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you got 75% of it going, and the other 25% needs to be maybe switched around and get that piece up and off the ground too. So follow up is critical. If you expect to launch something and never follow up again, that to me is a leadership fail. Mark my words. If you have trouble launching something to your team where they are not getting behind you, chances are you have not followed up in the past and they don't expect you to follow up in the future. Should I say it again? If your team are not getting behind you on these launches that or changes that you want to make in your company, and they are not taking action when you are changing or launching a program, could it be because you have not followed up in the past and things have fallen flat and they don't expect you to follow up now? Could that be? If that's the case, and you said yes in your mind, maybe you're not saying yes out loud, but in your mind, you're like, holy shit, I haven't followed up in the past. And I don't know what to do now because my team, they now are not trusting that I'm going to follow up now here in the future. You're not a lost case. You're not a lost cause. I want you to address the truth to your team. Be a truth teller. Address the truth and say to your team, I have an apology to make to you. In the past, I have not followed up. I have not been a great leader in this area. I have not followed up. Like, we've launched a million things and I have not been there for you. But I have a commitment to make to you here coming up in the future. I'm changing that. And I want you to know what you can expect from me as your leader. And I want to share with you what I expect from you. Things are going to be different. So you can change the course and the trajectory of your leadership at any time. You don't need to be your past. You don't need to be stuck in your past. You get to stand here today and say, I'm going to be a different leader. And you can proclaim that to your team right here and now. You can do that. You don't have to be stuck in like who you were. Okay? So if you want to make those shifts and you want your team to get on board, you are allowed to start fresh now. All right? I hope that I gave you some ideas about leadership optics. I want you to remember as we close out today that leadership optics is all about how we are perceived. And we can change how we're perceived at any given time based on the behaviors that we show up and embrace. That we show up, it's our actionable steps. It's what we say and it's what we do and it's how we show up to people. That's how we're going to be perceived. Okay? So I do have a little something to read you as we close out today on leadership. And it's on leadership. So here we go. The world will not belong to managers or those who can make the numbers dance. The world will belong to passionate, driven leaders, people who not only have enormous amounts of energy, but who can energize those whom they lead. It's all about your passion, guys. It's all about your passion. So I hope that you have an amazing week. I know you have it in you to create those leadership optics. And you know that I am here for you. If you need anything, feel free to DM me, reach out. We could have a consultation call if you think that anything you're going through, I could be of help or of service to you. So I hope that you're having an amazing holiday season. Try to stress less. All right. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, guys.